Good morning, good evening, good night. I can't believe we're nearly at our 9th hour of our 12-hour session, which is crazy. So yeah, really excited to have this session coming together. It's part of our GEG APAC and session as well, so which is really, really great. So hello everyone who's part of those sessions coming in. We've had some news about travel and some COVID-related issues and all those things happening with the guests this week. So thank you so much for that coming on. And yeah, I'm sure we'll be able to get some learning done in this space. So let's get ourselves started. Typical, we can't hear you, so you didn't hear anything I just said there now, but that's fine. That's okay. We'll move forward anyway. But yeah, so we're just starting off our 10th session of Empathetic Educators EE Conquest. And hello to everyone who has been part of the journey for the whole day. We have a couple of people who have actually been part of the whole 9 hours, which is fabulous. And a couple of people who are joining in. And if you're joining in and catching up on the sessions, I'm just going to let you know a little bit about EE Conquest and what's been about so far. So EE Conquest is a day of learning where we're coming together and learning all together across the world, connecting those global connections. And there's actually an EE Conquest guide that goes along with it that has missions to complete and that you can share in our community so we can join together. So it's bit.ly/EE Conquest guide. You can find out more about that. And if you are catching up or you haven't taken part in any of the other 9 sessions that have gone before this, you can find all those things and all the resources that we've included at bit.ly/EE Conquest 2021. And this is a completely free day of learning, but we're hoping that we can raise some money for a good charity, raising money for mental health in New Zealand with Youthline. So if you can donate, that'd be really, really great if you can. Or else if you can't donate, no problem. You can share into your communities and hopefully that can spread the word of raising money about this great cause as well. So that's bit.ly/EE Youthline. You can find out all about those things there. So without further ado, let's get our 2 guests on the screen today. And we're very excited to have you on, Fiona and Adam. Hello.
Hello.
Really, really grateful. So like I said in this session where no one heard me, I said that you've got a couple of the hiccups along the way for this week because of COVID and because of all those things, but really, really grateful. We're going to put that behind us. We're going to have a great session today and enjoy our coming together to learn together. So I'm going to just start off with our fire. So what ignites you? We have our fire as part of our session. So I've got my fire on the screen and just let people know about that. We're putting little fires and what ignites you? What's your passion? What fuels your mission? As part of EE Conquest, we're sharing those. So Adam, do you have your fueled fire there beside you?
Ooh. Of course I do. I've worked hard on this. I think it was quite a good reflective activity, actually. I really appreciated it. And I think what struck me as I was thinking about it is how different this flame probably would have been before COVID. Everything that's kind of driving me now, the things that I really value now. I mean, I valued them before, but now more than ever, since we've been online for so long, since students haven't been able to collaborate as much as they would have done before, work together as much as they would have done before. So really what came to mind straight away for me is collaboration between students, between teachers, as we're doing now. Creativity has become a really huge part of my practice and really significant driving force in what I do. Empathy, relationships, innovation, of course, that's why we're here. Agency, taking action. It's difficult to see, but I will share it online later. You don't want to miss it.
Beautiful. And I don't want to miss it. Yeah, Dr. Harvey said Adam uses crayons. We've been following your creative journey during your lockdown, which is
exactly.
And Fiona, let us know a little about your fire and your your passions.
I have to say mine's not as pretty because my 5-year-old coloured it for me.
Okay.
So the crayons did come out, but for the 5-year-old. Adam and I, we actually have a lot of crossover, and I think that's part of the reason why we're on this session together is because we have a lot of the same passions and interests. So part of mine was the student voice and developing resilient, independent learners, as well as STEM, because obviously that's what I'm really passionate about. And around that, I sort of had the same as what Adam said, community and connection and networking not only for students but for teachers as well, is something I'm really passionate about. And in the end, we're wanting to develop students who are critical thinkers, collaborative, flexible, creative and communicative. So that's sort of my flame there.
Beautiful, thank you. And yeah, like you say, there is some connections between the two. And his 5-year-old didn't color in his drawing though, so that's it's yeah, so beautiful, really, really nice. So thank you so much. And like I said, thank you so much for coming on the show and letting us know a little bit about your background. So let's like maybe we'll start with that first question about please tell the audience about STEMEDMagazine. Oh my gosh, congratulations by the way for getting that off the floor and getting that going. That's so amazing. Yeah. So what do you hope the audience will get from that? People who haven't heard about it yet or haven't seen it, then yeah, let us know a little bit about it.
Yeah, sure. So I'll start with a bit of STEMEDMagazine and the backstory behind it, and then I'll kind of gravitate from that. So STEMEDMagazine started in January of this year. As Adam sort of said, not only as myself but other educators, we've sort of evolved and developed from this pandemic. And I think that there's a lot of educators who are wanting to find resources and community from that to engage and develop their own teaching practice. And so over the past year, I've really started using Twitter a lot. I wasn't on Twitter before that. And I've just found that power of community and people sharing their stories so powerful for my own teaching. It's transformed not only my practice, but also it's impacting my students in the classroom. So I'm currently a full-time Year 1 teacher, as well as running the magazine. So 2 full-time jobs is very busy, but it's definitely worth it. So in January, I put out on Twitter if anyone would be interested in a magazine. I'm thinking it's going to be like a 10-page little spread. Yeah, it wasn't. It was about 80 pages long. And I've had so many educators wanting to share their stories around STEM education and around innovation and around technology. And I think, again, that comes from educators just wanting to connect with each other and build community and share the amazing things happening in their classrooms in the hope that they can help other students. Because I think as educators, we're all passionate about helping students achieve their best. And so the magazine kind of stemmed from that. So I'm just going to share my screen to sort of share a bit of what we've got on our slides.
And actually you have 3 full-time jobs really, because you're a mom as well. So like literally like I'm in awe of what you've put together. So yeah, again, congratulations of all those different things up up on the screen.
But she doesn't do her own colouring, so that's one less thing.
One less thing to worry about, you're right.
I have to outsource something, right?
Yeah.
So we've got our panel today. So I'm sure a lot of people who are watching today know what STEM education is, why it's important, how we teach it. But I just wanted to sort of share, again, sort of my flame and my passion as to why I'm passionate about STEM education. And when I was thinking about the presentation of the session today, I just kind of had this visual of the umbrella. So when we talk about STEM or STEAM, a lot of people associate it with the content knowledge around science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and the incorporation of the arts in there. And it's more than just teaching that content knowledge. I think underpinning that is really the skills that we're wanting students to develop. It's those 21st century skills that, you know, we always espouse to other people. We want students to be critical thinkers. We want them to be creative. We want them to develop their communication, their problem solving, their resilience and their flexibility. I think it's really important in our current society. And also, as, you know, Adam was saying before as well, I think underpinning even that is, you know, holding it all up together is about people and about relationships and how we're working with the students, how we're working with teachers to develop those skills and to incorporate content knowledge. And I know Adam's going to talk a bit more about the how of the teaching a little bit later on, but this is kind of why I'm so passionate about STEM education, is because this all comes together to help students develop those lifelong skills that they need, for years to come. And so that's where STEM education, the magazine, came about. So it's a digital publication that kind of incorporates evidence-based research and practical stories from educators across the world. So I just wanted to show a brief look at what the magazine looks like. So this first launched in February of this year. I was very lucky to have a large range of educators from across the world who contributed. Adam being one of them, and I'm going to show you his amazing article very soon. But as you can see, it's a free digital publication that can be found on our website, and it has evidence-based, research-based articles going through a range of different ideas from early childhood all the way up to high school, looking at the integration of STEM in the classroom. So not just one-off activities, but how we actually integrating STEM meaningfully into our classrooms. And so Adam shared an article about his use of Ozobots in the classroom, and shared a bunch of different activities. There's lots of links in the magazine that can, be accessible to other people. And so, the thing that I love most about the magazine is there's so many incredible educators worldwide. I know I've said that a few times, but worldwide, who want to share what they're doing in the classroom because they're passionate about it. They're really excited and engaged with what they're doing, and they just want to help other students and other educators as well. So the magazine's for everybody. It's for teachers who don't know much about STEM and are wanting to sort of dip their feet in and try and work out, how can they best teach STEM to their students. There's articles there for educators who have been teaching STEM for years and want to kind of grow and develop that more. There's resources at the end as well. Reviews of books and other articles and things like that for further reading, picture book connections for STEM, sort of just trying to include a bit of everything for educators to help them to understand what STEM is, how can they be teaching in their classroom, and how can they be sharing their stories further as well. So one thing that I love about the magazine is that there's always people who are wanting to share. There's always people who are wanting to be involved in that. I'm always happy to have any educators who want to share their stories can be involved on the website. There's a tab that says get involved, and you can share and message me. I'm happy to chat. But that's kind of where it's come from February. We've had almost 10,000 reads of the magazine since February, and it's been read in over 40 countries. So
Fiona, you must be so proud. That's so amazing. Like really, really, really amazing. Like well done. Like Keisha said, like I love when educators appreciate sharing and then create a new platform for more sharing. Serious props to your appreciation for your creations, because it's a lot of work that's gone into that, and a lot of planning, a lot of thought. But like you say, that integration, that support, that network that you're trying to create as a community, like that word shone through for me, like across what you were saying, community is yes. Thank you so much for creating that space. Yeah, Adam, you've got any connections to that, or
I think I just wanted to say exactly what you've said already about just a place for educators to come together and share. I really appreciate the magazine. It's so inspiring. But I think what inspires me also is I remember when Fiona was at the beginning of this journey, and it was really just an idea. I think I saw a tweet once, and it was, you almost said it quite flippantly.
Yes.
And then I can't imagine the amount of learning that's gone into it to actually make it an actual thing. Not just, it's so much further than like a blog or a website. It's an actual publication. The digital version, I think the hard copies that I pay for are amazing as well. So I just think it's amazing how you've gone from an idea to something so tangible and so exciting for the future.
Yeah, thank you. And I think also part of STEM education, not just with the magazine, but what I do in my classroom as well, I think it's about role modeling, just having a go at things. And that's one of my big mottos for STEM education, for students and for other teachers that I talk to about STEM education. It's just about trying to let go of that, worry that you have about getting things right, or what happens if this doesn't work out. It's just have a go. And I've learned as you said, I've learned so much along the way. I've learned lots about different types of paper in magazines. If you need to ask any questions,
you'll be able to read a magazine ever again. You'll be like, oh, that's 1.5 milligrams. But you're right, though, like Keisha said, I love those first-hand stories, empower people to try new things. And that's what a theme again has been through all the different sessions about people who are creating podcasts, people creating little spaces, people are just creating in their own classroom, is trying those little new things. And I think David Lee actually said it in one of my previous podcasts with him. He said about doing the little steps and taking like the initial step. So Evo, again, he said, great job, Fee. Like both of them were talking about that initial step is the tricky one. Like that initial little step where like you're taking that risk, and that's a big risk. But then all the little steps after that become smaller because you've had that little risk, and yeah, you keep moving forward too. So yeah, really great takeaways. And I think like that kind of ties in into like the next question of how do we like, what's your experience being with STEM and why do you think it's important? So like we know that you have been part of Fiona's like space. Yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, Fee, can you just put the slides up again?
Absolutely.
I think for me, when I think about the importance of STEM, I think about it as kind of a triangle of three different key areas. So if you just click next, Fee. And you mentioned this already, those skills that are developed through STEM, I think are so important. I mean, I know not everybody loves that term, soft skills, whatever you call them, in the learning assets or the attributes, whatever you want to call them, but just those skills that will serve students well throughout their lives. And however society changes, however the workplace changes, those skills are more important than ever. Creativity, agency, collaboration, flexibility, adaptability, and STEM is really amazing for developing these in students. So I think that's a really key reason for STEM education. Next, Fee. The other one for me is the opportunities that STEM opens up for students. Like I said already, the workplace is changing rapidly. The next few decades, I think we can't even imagine. The AI is already having an effect, automation, all of these traditional jobs and careers are kind of being sidelined. And what's kind of taking place of those is STEM fields that really don't have enough employees, and certainly not enough girls, not enough women, not enough people of color. So those future opportunities that STEM is just going to open up for students, I think are really exciting. And then even if you don't really buy into those two things, or even if as a teacher you already think you're developing soft skills, you don't really see a place for STEM, I just think it's amazing for deeper learning. Whatever you teach, whatever kind of teacher you are, whatever subject you teach, just injecting a bit of STEM will take it to that next level.
I think like just before we move on to the next part, like that opportunity space I've written down, like you say, the world's changing so much, and sometimes we can be kind of scared of like what's going on or why it's happening, or oh my gosh, like those jobs are changing and that kind of thing. But the more we talk about it and the more we bring it into our classrooms and our conversations, the less it can move from fear and scared to actually having the tools and the toolkit to take ownership of those spaces too. So I think it's a real, like that opportunity space is really, really important. Yeah.
And even there's research out, that jobs in 2030, 2040, 2050 are going to have skills such as computational thinking, creativity, collaboration, problem solving, critical thinking, all of these things that STEM lends itself so well to. And as educators, we're wanting to, equip our students as best as possible for the future. So when you kind of consider all of those kind of factors together, part of my thinking is why not STEM education, it just itself so nicely to all of those things.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Next slide.
Yes, please.
I feel like we're on what's the game where you have to go constant? Vile constant? I feel like I don't know what that is. Carl Vorderman? What do you call her?
Countdown.
Yes, countdown. I feel like that's Go ahead.
So just thinking about that piece of deeper learning, I purposely put this picture here because it's really not techie. There's no fancy equipment here. There's no latest gadgets, but really just any teachers can be thinking about just how to incorporate making into their classroom. And just this simple activity that you've probably seen online before, but I think it's a really good example of just how making something can take learning to a much deeper level. This is the topic of fractions, and we often use fraction walls to show students fractions and hope that they can recognize equivalent fractions and things like that. But instead of just showing them a fraction wall, get them to make one. I mean, this is just a very simple example of why making is so powerful. But just in this simple activity, students are understanding the connection between fractions and division. They can actually notice the equivalent fractions. They're applying their skills of division and rounding and measuring and all of these different things that go into just one activity. So I think just whatever you teach, just be thinking about what can students make during the lesson instead of just them passively getting information. How can they apply it? How can they make something?
And I think over like the connection piece between like it doesn't have to be digital as something, because even in my head sometimes it's like STEM equals digital, STEM equals on screen. I think that's so important, like that little takeaway of actually it's practical, physical. That's what I love about like what you share on Instagram and like all your little takeaways too. I think like those little, like it can be both, and both of them have a place in the setting. And the same as like the magazine is, because teachers, that's what I love about both of your sharing pieces, is it's practical takeaways into the actual classroom, and you don't have to, it can change your perception of what you think something is, which is really, really good.
There's a quote from John Spencer who says, sometimes the best technology is a roll of duct tape. And it really is. I think as I've been doing more design work with students, cardboard and tape, and it's just, you really don't need tech. If you've got it, amazing. You could do a lot of amazing things with it, but you don't feel like you're restricted if you don't have the latest gadgets.
Like that box, isn't it? Like when we see learners with the box, the empty cardboard box, and what they can create, like that. Imagine it goes back to what Fee was saying before, but like the creativity and like the imagination, like it just shines through whenever you give them those spaces. So yeah.
And I think it's really important, as you said, Naomi, to help educators understand that STEM isn't synonymous with technology. Because if you've got educators who are in, low socioeconomic areas where they don't have access to one-to-one iPads or hundreds of robots, and they think, well, I can't do STEM, and that's just not the case. And so I think, Adam shares some phenomenal things on his Instagram and things like that. So I urge educators to check that out, because it just will change your perception of what is STEM and how can I be teaching it, even if I don't have all the robots and all the cool gadgets and things.
Yeah, and all those links will be involved in like the session notes and everything too. So yeah.
Well, speaking of robots, next slide. So something I spoke about I wrote about in STEMEDMagazine was our Ozobot one-to-one program. During COVID, we decided to, just as an effort, try and maintain STEM and coding while students were at home. The school actually purchased an Ozobot for every student. So of course that was great during remote learning, but we've tried to integrate them as much as possible since then and really take advantage of them. So this is my colleague Kirsty, and we were teaching about the circulatory system as part of our body systems unit. And we thought, could we use the Ozobots to show where the blood actually travels and why it travels there? Could we code the robots in some way to show that? So we just started doodling together in the staff room, and we thought, how would this work? And we realized pretty quickly that we don't know what to put on the paper. Like, we don't actually understand it well enough to make something. And that led to lots of research and reading, and we were so into it, we were so keen. And within an hour, we'd done so much learning just to get to the point of being able to make something. And then months later, I heard a quote from Jiva Tully online, and it made me think of this. So Fee, if you just go to the next slide.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know until you try to make it. And I think that's a really powerful quote. Anytime students are attempting to make something, they will very quickly realize, just like we did, that they don't understand it as well as they think they do. And that will prompt so much more learning and so much more motivation. So I just try to remember that in everything I do now, just trying to inject some making into it, as many lessons as I can.
I think like another conversation we were having earlier on, I can't remember, it's so many sessions now. I will be able to know where they are, but one of the quotes that people were talking about was the fact that once like you become the teacher, then you become like understand it. And that's kind of the same thing where like if you're trying to teach something or you're trying to make something, then you understand how much you actually know of it, and then you can go back and correct your gaps and find your gaps. And I think that goes back to like that, it's really authentic parts that actually what we want the assessment people, what we want the learners to take action and like understand, taking the ownership, but those like making parts and making it kinesthetic and making it like actually moving with it allows them to see that space too. Yeah, really good parts.
Okay, and if you go to the next slide, you can see what we made. This is my colleague and I.
I love it. That's so cool.
And then the students did that in the class as well. But like I said, we just didn't realize how much we didn't know until we tried to actually make it. And of course, there are lots of ways to do that. You don't need the Ozo bots. You can do it in lots of different ways.
That's so good.
And from now on, it's just a load of examples. Is there anything else to share or say at this point?
I think what we're doing at the minute, like we can use those as talking points and like kind of references, like we're doing as like conversations. But I think like the way that Andrew said about learning is where the work is. So often we seek to make work easier for education without knowing we're diluting the learning experience. And I think like what we're trying to put together, sometimes it can be a bit more tricky because we have to understand it. I think for me, because I would say I'm very much into innovation and STEM and technology and all that kind of thing, but like I'm constantly having to learn what I'm trying to teach or like things like that. So sometimes we can be scared of actually taking that point and taking that step and seeing what we have to do. But through looking at like magazines that you're putting together and like the sessions that you're putting on Instagram, I think it's really, I think go back to what Keisha said, is it's making other people see it's okay to take that step and like learning, because like you've learned, like you say, you learned about the circle system and you learned how to create it by you actually doing it before like with the kids or before the kids. I think that's like a really great part of the experience too.
And I think like a couple of years ago, I started implementing Minecraft into our classroom for a range of different reasons. And, you know, I've had colleagues who are a bit hesitant about it because they're like, I don't know anything about Minecraft. And I said, you're in a classroom full of students who do know how to use Minecraft. So why not empower them to take responsibility and they can become the experts? And it's, you know, quite often it's the students who might not be the most academically adept or anything like that, but you know, they love Minecraft to bits. And so we've got, you know, students at our school who, when they're the Minecraft expert, you see them literally shine because they're like, I've got this is my jam, and I can help the other students that. So I think trying to help teachers not feel like they have to have control all the time with everything, but taking away some of that control and giving it to the students and saying, you know, you can have responsibility for your learning and also helping other people with their learning. And once teachers accept that, I think they feel less likely like they have to know all the answers, if that makes sense.
Because we actually, this year was my first year doing Minecraft as a whole class. I kind of explored a little bit in little pockets, but this is my first year doing it with the teacher, with the learners, and the amount they taught me. But I think as well, the amount that we, so I was in control. Obviously, if you get the learners and you say go to Minecraft, they'll be gone for hours, and you're like, what's actually going on in there? But like I was able to, even though I didn't know Minecraft, I was able to scaffold experiences to say, are you doing the right thing? Are we doing the right thing right now? Is that a learning experience? Is that like what we're actually doing? Sometimes it's good to go in a sand pit and just like go and explore. So I did that a couple of times and I end up getting attacked by them all, and like they end up like getting me involved. But even like that little thing where I'm learning with them, they're like, oh, we can teach Miss Naomi about this. We can like go through that together. And then I can say, okay, well, now we're trying, this is our goal. Have we achieved the goal? Have we tried to create? So we actually have a circulatory system with Minecraft. And so we created like little bodies. And I was actually watching Adam whenever because we were on the same unit together, actually. So you sparked me trying to see, how can I make this more engaging to like bring into the classroom too? And like, so they were able to create their little bodies. And so sometimes they would go off and they wouldn't do the right thing. And then they come back and say, okay, so did we create the circulatory system? Is that the mission complete? And so like you are able, even as a teacher, if you're not able to understand it, just able to like go through and see and go through the scaffolding with that, the learners, but then they teach you how to actually do it too. Yeah.
And I think as well, teachers are so often overwhelmed by new platforms and they think it's so difficult. And often all you need is half an hour on YouTube, watch a tutorial. And of course, your students can still take the lead. You can empower them, but just watch a tutorial and have a play yourself. It doesn't take a big time investment to at least be somewhat familiar with these platforms. There's a tutorial for everything on YouTube.
Absolutely. And like, you know, I've gone to Twitter and that's where I've learned a lot as well. I'm connecting with like-minded educators. I wonder if part of the problem though is, you know, here, like, so we're in obviously different continents and different countries. Here in Australia, we have a lot of, you know, curriculum pressures. So one of the things I often hear is educators saying, oh, but I don't have time to teach STEM, or how do I go off and learn about STEM or technology when I have to, you know, do my reporting, my assessments, my parent-teacher conferences, you know, the list goes on. And I think part of that, again, comes back to that shift of mindset. about, giving students more responsibility and control over some of the things, not just us, but also integrating STEM. So as you've shown us, Adam and Naomi, that you've incorporated the learning about the circulatory system and you've incorporated STEM into that. I think helping educators understand that you can integrate STEM into your literacy, into your science programs, if you can actually connect it all, even if you had an inquiry-based approach to learning and everything was integrated, I think once educators can kind of wrap their head around that, they can see it's not actually you're adding STEM onto it, but you're actually integrating it into what you're teaching.
And this is why I think that message about deeper learning is so important. It's not, STEM is not taking away from your usual teaching and learning. It's adding to it. You can actually get to deeper learning in a more efficient way, in a way that's more engaging and it sticks with students. And so I think it's not an extra thing. And as soon as we get comfortable with that, we can make.
And I think it goes down to like the training that we're doing with teachers. That's why I'm so passionate about the professional development of teachers. Like that's what we need to like do more of, because like you say, like it is good to go and watch a video, but how cool would it be if we actually bring it into the professional development? Because we're spending hours talking about this and talking about that, and the amount of like PD I've been in, I'm like, right, I have to go in tomorrow and teach, like it's like, and I think like those type of practical takeaways of how we can bring into like the professional development to say, this is what it looks like you just showed us there now about the math, the fractions, such a simple thing, but actually it's not so simple, because that's not the usual practice across the whole space. And I think it's like those little things, this is your traditional way of doing it, how can we do it a bit different, what can we bring into it to make it look a bit different, and what can we bring, because traditional is good as well, so like learn about the fractions, like you say, like that's a traditional thing we have to learn, but but it's like, how does it look to bring it into a more innovative, into a more STEM space, is like like that professional development space too.
I think is part of the problem to educators trying to find time to do their own professional development, because there's obviously hundreds and thousands of educators who are lifelong learners. They want to achieve their best for their students. They go off and spend a lot of time professional development. Not that the other teachers aren't passionate equally about those things, but when you consider, family commitments, they've got other commitments and things. It's how do you create that that space and that passion for going off and finding that learning, because there is so much learning out there available for educators. We've obviously got this amazing conference now today, the magazine, Instagram, all of these things that are being developed to help educators. But I guess part of it too is, how do we help educators understand that these resources are readily available for them, that they can access to better support their students. I guess that's part of it as well, trying to come back to that.
And that's been a theme actually running through all the conversations is, yes, and how do we bring it into our systems? Yes, how do we bring that into our schools? Yes, how do we make this type of conversation reach the decision makers who are actually putting us all these time into it? So it's like, that's where I feel like now that we're in a good space where there's a good community of people who are trying to create it where people can go look to it. So now how can we take another step and actually go to like the decision makers and the policy makers and that kind of thing? It's like, like that next step with it too.
And I think this is why we've mentioned it already, but this is why I value Twitter so much, and Instagram, and just any opportunity to connect and see what other educators are doing. Because those educators just don't have the time to, or they don't often know how to find inspiration, but just flicking through Twitter every day, that I get so much inspiration from that. And I often see ideas that I don't know how to do that, especially like really techie ideas. Maybe I don't know how to do it, but it's in the idea bank. And if I ever need it, I can hopefully figure out how to do it. But for me, Twitter is where I get all my ideas.
And
I think that's what, go ahead, Sophie. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to just say, I love to, not like a step further from that is, I see an idea and I go, that's awesome. I'm going to ask them about it, because it's all about, as we've said this whole time, it's all about relationships and it's about people and it's about connecting. And I think the thing with Twitter is you find so many like-minded people. My husband has no idea why I spend so much time on Twitter. And I'm like, it's my people. Like, you can be in a school with people and you're passionate about teaching children, but all people have different sort of, passionate projects. Whereas for me, it's all about STEM. And so I can go to Twitter and find all my STEM teacher buddies and I can ask them questions and I can see cool stuff and I'll message you and go, how did you do that? Because I want to have a go of that in my classroom. Twitter really is about those connections and actually making meaningful and deep connections with people. Two of my best friends are on Twitter, and I've never met them in real life yet, but we chat every day because, you know, we've just got that like-minded, you know, personality where we can chat about those things. I think that's why I rave about Twitter so much.
I think that's what I love is like, it's really changed my mindset towards the digital space. It's like, I didn't realize, like, before I was like, can you really create connections online? And what does that connection look like? But this year has taught me that, like, there's people who I've talked to about like life and moving country and like all different things. And like, we talked about more personal things as well as more professional things. And like you say, it's that initial step, going back to that initial taking the risk, taking the leap of faith to reaching out to people. And I think that's like that development of the community of things. I think that's why I have Edu Spark on here is hopefully like Craig Kemp and Andrew Moa is like, he's actually part of this community at the minute now, having the conversation, and that's what they're trying to do is like that professional development piece coming up soon. I don't have all the resources, but I have the link on there, and I have, like, because it's coming up really soon, wonderful experiences that they're putting together. So watch this space for Edu Spark, because that's what, like, that across that community, like you say, like, you're trying to create like the global connections, because then once you realize, okay, that person over there is doing this, it's giving you a little bit more of perspective than not just you in your own little bubble in your own little world. It's like, yeah, it goes beyond that. Really. Well, yeah, I think that's a great takeaways again, and like join them with the chat and all different things. I think, like you say, that we'll put that little link to the resources that you've created, the slideshow and the STEMEDMagazine and all those things as part of the resources. It's in the bio below, but I'll put it in as part of the actual resource set that's going on the online portal. And if you have anything else that you think might work, put it into that put it into the form that we sent out as well. So there actually is a form that we're putting out as part of all these conversations too, that the audience can add into. So if you have any STEM resources or any of anything that you think would add into this conversation or any of the other conversations, the form will be there for you to contribute to as well. It's not just for the guests or the people coming on, it's actually the audience members, because if we can share together all those different things, that's really important too. So yeah, any last little takeaways before we go? What's your one little tidbit, your one little thing to summarize what we talked about today? Yeah, Adam, do you want to go first?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if anyone is interested, we'll share those slides, because there are loads more little project ideas on there. And if you've got any questions about them or want any more information, just let me know. But I think I just want to end on a story, because this year, the story is that just the last day before Easter, we were encouraged as teachers and all the community to wear something Easter related, some bunny ears or something chicken or egg or something. And I totally forgot, and I completely forgot. And I got to school and I apologized to the kids. I said, I bought some bunny ears. I left them at home. I'm so sorry. And almost immediately they said, Mr. Hill, let's just make you some bunny ears. and I thought that was, and within 20 minutes they'd made some bunny ears for me. But that kind of problem solving, that agency, and our kids in international schools are so often accused of being privileged, and everybody else does everything for them. So I think that was just a really powerful moment for me, that I didn't even think of that, but they did. Just make your own, Mr. Hill, get on with it.
That culture of like the solutions is like, yeah, so good. And
they grabbed some cardboard, they grabbed some paper clips, and they just threw something together in 20 minutes. And yeah, I was really proud of them. Just a simple story like that, but that's why I think it's so important.
Beautiful. And just let people know where they can find you. I think a lot of people do follow you in your space. Where can people find you? Yeah, you got there, but just let people know a bit more.
Yeah, it's the same handle on Instagram and Twitter, Adam Hill EDU.
Beautiful. Lots of go follow, because lots of great things going on there. And yeah, Fee, let us know a little bit about you. What do you think of a summary?
I said it before, but I think just having a go at things. I think don't be afraid, don't be worried about, is it going to work, is it not going to work? I'm trying to teach my students growth mindset, because year one students are not very resilient. Poor little 6 and 7 year olds. But I remember, a few months ago, I had like this maths lesson that was just a complete bust. It just did not work. And I stopped in the middle of the lesson. I said, okay, we're going to stop this lesson because it's not working, and we're going to try something different. And all these little 6-year-olds like, what are you doing? It's like, well, sometimes even as adults, we realize that things don't work and we just got to try and find a different way around it. And I think, I was team teaching, so I had other adults in the room, and, it can take a lot to actually own that and be like, okay, I've actually got to admit that this isn't working. But I think, when you realize, well, it's for the benefit of the students, not only am I going to make the maths lesson better, but I'm also going to model to them what it looks like to have a growth mindset to go, okay, this isn't working, what's a different way around it? I think it's taking away from us and realizing sometimes you're just going to have a go. Sometimes things aren't going to work, they're going to fail, they're going to be a big flop, and that's okay, because you're actually teaching students more than just the content, but you're actually modeling to them lots of skills and things that they can learn as a result of that as well. And also, if anyone who's watching wants to contribute to the magazine, sharing your stories, I think it's really powerful, not only for the people who are reading the magazine, but also for yourself. I think it's really powerful for you to be able to share your stories as well. You can find me at STEMEDMagazine on all of the platforms. Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I'd love to have a chat with anybody who's interested.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And we'll end it with Andrew said, very stimulating. Many thanks, Adam and Fee. Love your work, the maker mindset, and kids so inspirational.
Just one more thing, Naomi.
Yeah.
Just a reminder as well, we really want to support Youthline. So if you did enjoy the session, or even if you didn't, do head over to Youthline and just chip in whatever you can. Naomi, you've done an amazing job, Naomi. So just let's hope we can make some money for them.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for the show. I'll put this back on screen, just let people know about where you can find it, because it is. I'm really thank you so much for that. Because so you can find out bit.ly/EE Youthline. You can let us know donating it, and you can share the link if you can't donate. That's no problem at all. But $1, $2, if there's even like 100 people watching, that's really great across the show as well. So yeah, a little goes a long way. And you can catch up on all the resources that we talked about and all the amazing sessions that have come before this and are going to be coming after this and during this at bit.ly/EE Conquest 2021. We've got a couple more subscribers today, which is exciting. So if you like the show and you like what we're doing, then give it a little like and give it a little subscribe. And we're hoping to see you coming up next. Our next session coming on is session 11. I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. And I'm not asleep yet. So that's great. Bit.ly/EE Conquest 11. We're talking all about well-being workshops. So we'd love to have you on board. And I'm just so grateful. Thank you so much, team. Thank you so much to the audience members for contributing and everything else too. So I'm just going to take a little photograph of us and taking a photograph of each one of them. And 3, 2, 1. Beautiful. Thank you, team. And have a nice evening. And thank you so much for contributing to the show.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Bye, team.